All right. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Let's see. Let me go to my chat here. Let's go ahead and turn on the kettle. My channel. Got some ads playing. All right, so we got Wyatt Horn here. We got Cunard. We got Daniel, Normandy, Lightning McQueen, Ryan, Technoblade, Granny Gaming, ads. Cool. Okay, so far 19 people. Connor says 2 trains at the same time. I can't do that, but I hope it looks good. I think it looks good. So, yeah, so now you guys should be able to see the trains a little up closer, and you'll see kind of what the whole layout looks like. You know. Oh, gosh. What a day. It's been all live streaming today, so I was invited onto the LMG Vids channel to do a live stream earlier today. Yeah, so we watched the Disney parks thing, so actually that was fine the way it was. Oh, my chat is not keeping up. There we go. Nate says, who needs a pet cam when you have a train cam? Exactly. So, Squeaky is being squeaky today. Yes, today is the anniversary of the Twin Towers falling, but hopefully we'll try to, you know, make a happier day out of it. Granny Gaming says, you got a new camera. Yes, the camera that is facing me is a brand new, it's an actual, like, camera. And the one that's looking at the trains is the old webcam that I was using for the tea times up until today. So, yeah. Granny Gaming says, you didn't oil it. I was rushing, because I don't know if you know, there are 4 separate sets of stage lights on me. There's a camera there. There's a camera over there. I've had to, every time I do a tea time, I have to move my furniture around so that way stuff isn't in the way of the tea time. So it's a lot to do to set up for tea time. So actually, it's harder now that there's 2 cameras. So, yeah. Granny Gaming says, using a DSLR camera. It's not a DSLR, but it works like a DSLR. So it's got like separate lenses and everything, and it's a consumer grade, almost DSLR camera. Yeah. Conrad says the trestle looks taller. It might just be the webcam, because the webcam is an extra wide screen, so it kind of moves stuff around. Like it, what's the word? It deforms the image. So when you guys were watching me on my live streams prior to today, that webcam would actually like kind of deform the shape of everything around here. So even I was a little bit deformed in that one. I was a little bit fatter looking in the webcam. So that webcam added like 20 pounds. I kid you not. It was crazy. It was an ultra-wide webcam, yeah. It really was. It was ultra-wide, so that way you could see all the surroundings. Alright, so I forgot to get a cup for emptying out water, so hold on. I will be right back. Set that there for now. So the other thing you might notice too is that all the colors are better. So everything isn't just blown out with too much white. It should look a lot more even now. So that's something else I'm excited about, because my live streams, everything was too blown out, and then when I tried to show you like the foods I was eating and stuff, it was just white. It was just hard to see anything. So distortion, yes, Conrad, that's the word I was looking for, was distortion. Lana McQueen says, quick test, tell me some random knowledge about Queen Mary. Yes, so she had what was called shear and camber. So shear was the longitudinal upwards curvature at both ends, and camber is the horizontal, not longitudinal. So longitudinal is that way, but anyway, the width of the ship was curved upwards at the center. That's camber. That helps to allow rain or even ocean water to shed off of the ship. John says, thanks for going through the trouble of this. You're welcome. You know, I'm always trying to increase the quality of my live streams. So, yeah, so you don't even believe, like, how difficult it was to set up for this tea time live stream, but it should be better now. So, I should have oiled that engine before I got it started. Let's see here. Granny Gaming says, does that mean we can actually see what's broke on his tea set now? Yes. In fact, so I always tell people... that the lid is supposed to have like little nubs on the side. So the underside of the lid, sorry, it's hard to, there we go. The underside of the lid is supposed to have these two little lips here that grasp the underside of the teapot. But this one doesn't have that because the person who owned it broke them off. And you can actually see where it's been broken. Oh, I see the... I'm watching it on the stream now. The images up on the top covered what I was trying to show you. Jeez. Oh well. I can't do everything on this live stream. Alright. Time to start preheating everything. Hello, Mark. How's it going? Okay. Let's go ahead and... So one thing you guys can't see from where you're sitting is just the amount of equipment that is set up right now for this live stream. There are cables everywhere. So when I walk in and off this area, I have to climb over cables and stuff. It is ridiculous. The apartment looks like a mess just because I've had to reassemble it so I can fit everything here. So yeah, it's a lot. I'm gonna let this heat up here. Thank you, LMG, for answering Rytupiup's question. Hello, Goofy Rolls. SS Tasmania says, hello, I'm new to your channel and love your content. Oh, thank you so much. Welcome aboard. Wolf Lord says, what was the fastest ocean liner during the First World War? First World War would have been RMS Mauretania. That was the fastest ocean liner. SS Normandy says, how did the Queen Mary beat the Normandy so many times? Well, it's all in my videos, but basically, Queen Mary just had a lot of horsepower. You know, she was just strong. So even though her hull wasn't like the most, you know, efficient hull ever built for slicing through the water, she was just powerful. And so that's what helped her to ultimately win the ribbon so many times. I mean, there are other like little tidbits here and there. They replaced her propellers, but then again, they replaced Normandy's propellers, so I don't like to just add that in because both of them got more efficient propellers, so that kind of cancels each other out. But, you know, ultimately it was Queen Mary's sheer brute force that allowed her to just, you know, to win those races all the time. Granny Gaming says, would you ever do a tour of this tea time setup? There's not much to tour you through. I mean, I have a video on my channel that shows like all this all set up nicely and stuff. You know, it's my apartment tour video where I first moved in and I showed you guys the entire apartment. I got stuff like that. I might eventually make a video that talks about the history of this tea set and everything, but that'll be in the future. At the moment, I've got too much on my plate, like way too much on my plate. Wyatt Horn says, I think the kettle went off. It did, yes, it has to, because once it reaches boiling, it can't keep going. So it automatically shuts off, which is fine because right now the vessels are just preheating. So, hello, Goofy Rolls. Oh, to Ryan G. Oh, I see. History of Swag says, hello, Alex. What's your least favorite kind of tea? My least favorite kind of tea is American sweet tea. I just don't like... I don't like any kind of teas that you drink cold. None at all. I don't like any teas that you drink cold. I don't like the way it tastes. Tasmania asks, what tea is it this time? Today it is Twinings Earl Grey tea. Ryan Hines says, have you checked out D23? Yes, I have, because I just came from a live stream of doing that. So me and my friend LMG Vids, he invited me onto his channel. We did a live stream review of today's announcements on D23. Spoiler alert, I was not a happy camper. So, let's see. Granny Gaming says, do you use a TV as a monitor? Yes, I do. So my television is all the way over there. In fact, you can see the corner of the television in the camera showing my train. So, it's mounted on my wall. I use that as a monitor for my computer. And at night, when I close down the computer, I use it as just a television. So, in an apartment this small, you have to learn to use multiple things for multiple purposes. So, you know, television acts as a computer and as a, you know, as an entertainment television. Rory Hoban says, do you know if there are any plans to reopen Queen Mary? Yes, Queen Mary's been under refurbishment since February. They are saying fall 2022. So that is what they're saying. So it could be October, could be November. So it's one of those 2 months. So that's when Queen Mary will reopen this year. Granny Gaming says, just watched a bit of your apartment tour. You got a nice looking setup and keyboard. Thank you. It's quite old though, so I have upgraded stuff. I've upgraded my microphone. Now I have like a kind of like a soundboard now, and I have all kinds of stuff. It is silly just how much equipment I have now. All right, time to Crittenden says, Alex got a question. How many Cunarders has the Queen launched and named? Queen Elizabeth II launched and named QE2, Queen Mary 2, Queen Elizabeth, and Queen Victoria. So 4 Cunard liners. Alright, so tea goes in. Come back at 425. This could use a little bit more because it's not hot enough. Cool. It's not in the way, is it? No. Okay. Rightopia says, I await the day when when one universal cable can do everything. I know, wouldn't that be nice, right? But anyway, even then, I have multiple things plugged in, so each of them requires a separate cable anyway, even if they all have the same type. So, Daniel says, have you heard of the MV? I can't pronounce that. 1914 was redesigned many times. Also called this an Edwardian era ship. I haven't heard of that ship, no. Goofy Rolls doesn't like green tea. I don't mind green tea, actually. I grew up drinking green tea, so I don't mind it. I don't prefer it, but I don't mind it. Granny Gaming says, what kind of TV do you use? It's a... I don't know. I'm not much of a technology person. It's 65 inches, and it's new. Not that new, but I mean, I bought it 2019, I think. So, I don't know. Pete and Harley says, what medical facilities were available to passengers and crew when Queen Mary was in service? So Queen Mary had a hospital, and it was located somewhere in first class. But of course, anybody from all 3 classes, they could use the hospital. They had a surgery as well, so a surgery theater. So if they needed to perform surgery, they could. I don't know the specifics. I couldn't tell you like what equipment they had and blah blah blah. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that they had a surgery. They had plenty of like wards or whatever you call them for like bed areas. I'm gonna have to oil that in just a minute. That's all I can tell you. She also had a separate hospital, which is known as the isolation ward. The isolation ward was where they kept people who needed to be isolated for whatever reasons, you know, contagious stuff, or maybe they're even just stowaways. Even if they're not looking for medical treatment, they might just be stowaways. They're kept there. So she had technically 2 hospitals, yeah, but only 1 surgery. As Normandy says, have you ever seen ghosts? Yes, when I worked at Disneyland. John says, Alex, your audio is out of sync. Your voice isn't matching your lips. I didn't think it would be, to be honest, because the only way it would work is if I had a microphone plugged into the camera, and I've tried both the camera microphone and I also have a separate microphone for the camera. Both don't sound as good as this microphone. So unfortunately, that's something I cannot fix. It's gonna have to be that way. I did a bunch of tests with the live stream. I had my friends listen to the live stream, and we tried out the 2 different microphones that my camera has. It just doesn't sound as good as this one. So, let's see here. I swear one day you're going to need to end up hiring an editor to edit videos for you. I already need an editor. Problem is I can't afford one, so I have to do it all myself. But I'm already at the point where I need a video editor because I don't have the time between doing the research, writing the script, narrating the script, editing, adding music. You know, it's a lot. It's like, you know, every week I put out some kind of historical video, and that's a tough schedule to keep. You know, I'm busy like day and night. Okay. Time for tea. Can you guys hear the music, by the way? I always have music playing on this live stream. I raised the volume yesterday, so can you guys hear the music? I just want to know. Goofy Roll says your microphone is working great. You are now nice and loud. Yeah, I didn't do anything different. It's the same microphone. See you later, History with Swag. Tasmania asks, have you watched the launch of RMS Queen Anne? No, I didn't watch it. And I don't think it's RMS, because it's not even an ocean liner. So it would be MS. Or MV. One of the two. Because Queen Mary 2 is RMS. But that was only because she was an ocean liner and because of the heritage of the ocean liners. Hello, Harrison. There we go. Daniel says, hey, Alex, is it possible for a yacht to make it across an ocean or survive rough seas? Yeah, of course. It's possible for a tiny little sailing dinghy, you know, to do that. And people have done it. But, you know, it's not guaranteed that they'll survive, you know. Something bad can always happen. The sea is often unpredictable, so. Yes. Good evening, Harrison. Hello, Kobe. People were giving 0 stars on Google reviews just because Queen Mary wasn't open. Oh, wow. That sucks. Well, you know, the thing is that the website for the Queen Mary is still up and running, but people don't know it's been abandoned. So it says like, oh, Queen Mary opens on this day or blah, blah, blah. So people, you know, travel a couple hundred miles on a road trip to see LA. They come to Queen Mary and it's not open and they're surprised. Well, that's what happens when you abandon a website, you know. Granny Gaming says, what time is tea time supposed to be at? 4 p.m. John C. says, what tea do you like most? I like the pineapple Waikiki tea that my mom got. The tea I like most is Earl Grey, so I always enjoy the days when I get to try my Earl Grey. Put that as far away over there as possible so it doesn't get in the way. Linda says, hey there, Alex, can't stay, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry about lack of anything at D23. Yes, we always hope, but I'm not surprised. Nothing good is happening. Just Marvel, yawn. Yeah, I know. Does SS Nomadics engines still work? SS Nomadic doesn't have engines anymore. They were taken out a long time ago. Jeff B says, did Queen Mary have a dog kennel on board just like Queen Mary 2 does? Yes, Queen Mary did, in fact. Today, that dog kennel is used as an electrical distribution room, so it's not available to the public. But it was located on Sun Deck near the squash courts, and yeah. So, but yeah, yeah. She had a kennel. She also had a nursery for flowers and plants that were used on board the ship. So I need to find where the nursery was. Little Gamer says, "Yo, train cam." Yes, indeed. Everybody says they can hear the music. Okay, good. What kind of music is it? Somebody asks. It's basically like 1930s, 1940s orchestra band music. Conrad says, I can barely hear the music. It seems a little softer than usual, but close. Interesting. I raised the volume on it. But yeah, I can't put it too loud because I get copyright claims. It's weird. I have to balance it just right. It has to be loud enough that you can kind of hear it in the background, but not loud enough that you can definitely hear it. So, let's see. Barely can hear the music, everybody says. Granny Gaming says, what is that metal thing you put inside the tea? Is that the tea leaves? Yes. So I keep the, what do you call it? It's a loose leaf tea, and you put it inside this. This is a tea infuser. You can't tell, but it's got thousands of little microscopic holes, and that allows the water in, and the tea can brew that way. Taylor says, I found out that Queen Elizabeth II loved to drive and continued to do so only until a few years ago. That is correct. She did love to drive. Lightning McQueen says, have you ever seen a shipwreck? Only on photos and video. I've never been to one, and I never want to be to one. Can a cruise ship survive the North Atlantic Ocean? Absolutely, if they go during a certain time of year, like summer, where it's always like calm weather and stuff, and if they also wait for perfect weather, yes, they can. But will they survive the North Atlantic during the stormiest season when like huge storms come through? No, probably not. And they try to avoid that as best they can. Kobe says, I honestly don't know why they didn't close the website. Well, the website was owned and operated by the previous company, which was Urban Commons, and they went bankrupt. So there was literally no one, like there's no one you can pay to like manage the website, you know, or even like shut it down because they're all gone. So, can SS United States be returned to sailing condition? If you have enough money in this world, you can do pretty much anything. Dangerous Brian says, just think the MS Queen Anne will be the first ship from Cunard line that will be christened by King Charles III instead of Queen Elizabeth II. I know, it's so interesting how things will change. Conrad says, did the nursery double for the dog walking area? No, because the nursery was indoors. It was like a greenhouse almost. The dog walking area was just there. There's an area right out front of the kennels that today they use just like as an outdoor area for dancing, and there's nothing up there, you know, like the nearest thing to that area is the current radio room that they use. It's not the original radio room, but it's the current radio room. That's the only thing up there, but it's a big open area that spans the entire width of the sports deck, and that was where they would walk the dogs sometimes. And of course they would have to clean up and stuff afterwards because that's also where they did deck games, so people liked their deck games. Okay, time for me to oil this because it's driving me crazy. It's not as bad as it usually is when it gets squeaky, but it's enough that I'm pretty sure it's going to annoy some people who are here for the first time and have no idea why that train is squeaking. Okay. And that's all it takes. Okay. All right, so let's see. SS Normandy says, another reason why somebody wouldn't want to stay on the Queen Mary is because none of the rooms have mini fridges. I mean, you wouldn't really want to. I mean, you'd want to keep as many of the rooms as original as possible. Some people, what they really want when they visit Queen Mary is the original ocean liner experience. Nicolaus says, did Queen Elizabeth II ever ride her namesake vessel? Well, first of all, thank you so much for the donation. Did she ever ride her namesake vessel? Well, her namesake vessel was the MV Queen Elizabeth, which is a cruise ship, and I don't think she ever did. I don't even know if she took a tour of it. She might have, but I don't think she did. A lot of people think that the QE2 was named after Queen Elizabeth II. That's not it at all. I mean, she accidentally did, but that's not what it's named after. So, when the QE2 was going to be launched, she was just going to be named Queen Elizabeth. And naturally, that would have made her the second ship. She was being named after the first. Just like how Oceanic of 1899 was just called RMS Oceanic. It wasn't called Oceanic 2, even though it was the second one, but it was named after the first one. So QE2 started off as just Queen Elizabeth, and they were going to name her after the first Queen Elizabeth ship. But Queen Elizabeth II misunderstood that, and she thought they were naming it after her, and she is Queen Elizabeth II. So she called it, I now name this ship Queen Elizabeth II, instead of, Queen Elizabeth. Because they had explained to her it is the second Queen Elizabeth ship. So she called it Queen Elizabeth II. And that was a big problem for Cunard, because they did not expect her to do that. And so they can't contradict the Queen. They cannot say the Queen was wrong. So instead what they decided to do was, along with the nameplate that they installed, they last minute asked for an addition to the nameplate, a number 2. A numerical 2, not a 2 with 2 eyes. It's a numerical 2, which indicates it is named after the ship, not the woman. So that's an interesting little fun fact that a lot of people don't know. So, but there was a Cunard ship named after Queen Elizabeth II, and that would be the MV Queen Elizabeth. All right. So today I have here some, what do they call it? Crumpets. Some English crumpets. So you can actually see the colors now of the crumpets, and probably the detail as well, because now it's not just like overly like whited out, but they essentially are like pancakes, kind of, except they're not super sweet. They taste like English muffins. They're just soft like pancakes and very fluffy. And these I coated in butter and honey, which is one way that people love to eat it. And then on this plate I have my usual Scottish shortbread, which I make here at home, and I give some to my sister whenever I make a batch. And it's literally just a shortbread cookie, essentially, but it's the recipe I have is really, really soft. It just melts in your mouth. So let's see. Wyatt Horn says Nomadic would carry passengers from Cherbourg to the Olympic class because they were too big, along with her sister Traffic. Yes, the Nomadic and Traffic also had served the Queen Mary. I think mostly Nomadic did. I don't know if Traffic did it, but Nomadic served the Queen Mary. Thank you so much, Goofy Rolls, saying, by the way, Alex, you're looking very sharp today. Thank you so much. Pete and Harley says, what deck games were available for passengers on Queen Mary? I don't know too many deck games. I know there was a version of tennis called ship tennis, I believe it is. So instead of hitting like a ball with like a racket, they would throw a ring of rope, because obviously you don't want the ball to just bounce and fly off the ship. So they threw a ring of rope, and it worked the same way as tennis. Or is it volleyball? I think I'm thinking of volleyball. Ship volleyball or something like that. But they also had shuffleboarding. So yeah, so shuffleboard, is that the right one? I feel like that's not the right term. It's where you have like a wooden disc and you use like a broomstick kind of, and you push the stick and you push it over a number. I'm not sure how you play any of these games. I'm telling you right now, I'm not a sports person. I don't know anything about games. I don't have a single competitive bone in my body. So I have no interest in games and sports and stuff. So all these deck games and stuff, I couldn't tell you how they work. But I do know they had things like shuffleboard. They had things like the volleyball, and they had tennis. And then, of course, besides the deck games, they also had the squash court, which was located indoors. Tasmania says USS Enterprise looks like it originally supposed to be built as a passenger liner looking at the hull. USS Enterprise as a passenger liner? Passenger line ships were built by private companies, whereas like Navy ships are usually built by the government. So I highly doubt that USS Enterprise was originally designed as a passenger ship, because it's the two different entities made those things, and they were built for completely different purposes. So Spyro says, I would really like to be able to restore the original arm as Queen Mary to sailing condition. I mean, some people say that they wish that they could do that. I personally don't. I wouldn't want to see that happen. I personally feel that Queen Mary had a wonderful life at sea. I am not one for sequels, so I don't believe that, like, if you have all this luck where you have this successful run, I don't believe that you can always replicate that. What happens if you get the Queen Mary moving and you find out that nobody really cares anymore? What happens if you find out that, like, it was a waste of money and time, and then she falls into a worse state because now she has to be somewhere else, no one wants her, she might end up in scrap just because, maybe the business failed. So You know, I mean, I guess the counter argument is what if she became super successful? Well, even then, she's still at the risk of what happens on the ocean. So what happens if, like, a storm gets her and she, you know, sinks in the middle of the ocean? Then she's gone forever. So I prefer ships that have ended their life to be, like, in ships like Queen Mary, to be turned into museums so everyone can appreciate them, you know. And, you know, so yeah, that's just my personal view on it, but... Danielle says, Alex, what kind of power pack do you use to control your train? I can't see it from here, and I don't want to climb over there. It's just a typical train power pack. There's really nothing special about it. I don't know. I can't... Yeah, I don't know. It's like far away, and I have to climb over all the wires and stuff and try not to knock over the lights and cameras. I don't want to climb over there. Little Gamer says, would you stream working on the Squeaking Trains Railroad? What? I don't understand your question. Let's see. Have just wondered, would you ever make a Discord server for your community? I have a Discord server for Patreon members and for channel members of, you know, my channel. But I don't have a free server. And the reason why is because, I don't know if you guys know this, Discord servers are really finicky things. And when you allow the public on them, people act in whichever way they want to act. And I would have to be the law and order of that. I've been part of Discord servers before. I don't like the way they work. You know, again, law and order. You got people who are literally doing whatever they want, some of them even illegal things, and you have to stop that stuff from happening. And I don't like that kind of thing. So I have a private Discord server for the members of my channel and my Patreon members. And thankfully they are all very nice, really well-behaved people, so I have no worries about about them at all. So yeah, but I don't ever want to have a public Discord server for that reason. It's trying to prevent the public from doing things that, you know, that they really shouldn't be doing is really taxing. See. Carl says, hi Alex, was looking forward to your Queen Elizabeth II video. Just learned that she speaks very well in French and she prefer reading in French as a French Canadian. Gives me peace knowing that. Oh, you're talking about Queen Elizabeth II. Oh, okay. I don't know if I'll have a video about her. You know, I really mostly focus on, like, technologies and things. Architecture and technology. Maribel says, Alex, don't you know that Queen Elizabeth II passed away? Yes, I did a live stream on the day she passed away, and so you can actually still see it on my channel. I gave my thoughts about Queen Elizabeth II. Yeah, Dangerous Brian. That's why Queen Mary 2 has the numerical 2 after it. But the funny thing is again, in the past, they never used to put numerical 2s. Like you think about Mauretania 2, which, if I remember correctly, was launched in 1938. If I remember correctly, Mauretania 2. But it wasn't given a numerical 2. It was just Mauretania. And that's because back then they didn't give ships numerical 2s, even if they were named after the first ship. And so QE2 was the first Cunard ship, as far as I know, that was literally given a numerical 2, and that's because Queen Elizabeth II misspoke when she named the ship. Just a funny little story I like to share. Deck tennis, Tyler Frederick says, yes. Was there shopping on Queen Mary or services like spas and hair salons? Yes. So Queen Mary had what's called a Turkish bath. It's not exactly a spa, but it's the closest thing to a spa that you could get. So back then, Turkish baths were really popular on ocean liners. So yeah, Queen Mary 2 had a Turkish bath, a very big one. And then when it comes to shopping, yes, you could do shopping on the promenade deck at the main hall. Today they call it Piccadilly Circus. The main hall had all kinds of shops and things, and it wasn't shops like you would normally think. They weren't generally something you walk into and purchase something. It was more like window shopping. So they had all these like windows set up with all this merchandise in it, and then stewards were there to watch you, and if you asked for something, the steward would go and open the door for you and pull out the product, and then it would be automatically charged to your account, because your account was what you paid to get onto the ship in the first place. So it'd be charged to your account, so you could just walk away with the merchandise right then and there. So that's how it worked. It was like window shopping with the stewards waiting to, to attend to your item of interest. So yeah, she had lots of shopping for both first, second, and third class. So all three classes had shopping. If you wanted to do shopping in third class, you had to do it in the Garden Lounge. The Garden Lounge had similar displays and a window set up so you could see all the merchandise for sale. But the most merchandise was sold in first class. The most variety, I should say. Most variety of merchandise was sold in first class. As for hair salons, yes, Queen Mary had hair salons in all three classes. And third class, though, the hair salon was a combination hair salon and barber shop. But the other two classes, second and first class, they each had a separate hair salon for women, barber shop for men. Yeah, Kobe, that show, yeah, I've heard of it. I tried to watch it. I couldn't really get into it. Right, Choopy Up, I guess that's not what I meant by sequels. I don't mind if there's a second ship, but to take a retired ship like the Queen Mary, and there's certain retired ships that are okay, like the Aurora is currently being restored to sailing condition. That's fine in my opinion, but a ship as grand as Queen Mary, I don't believe in getting her to sail again. I don't believe in that kind of thing. I don't think that's a good idea. So that's really what I meant by sequel. Thank you so much, Dino DeSantis, for the donation. If someone were to join your channel membership and doesn't rejoin, does that mean they are removed from your server? Yes. The server is part of your monthly membership. So if you cancel your monthly membership, you will be removed from the server. Normandy said, it would be like World War III if you had a public server. Yes, it really would. I've seen other people's servers. It is like World War III. People get in arguments. People do things. I've had instances where, someone was speaking to someone underage. I don't think they did anything inappropriate, but it was just kind of weird. And so things like that. Like, I've seen that happen on other people's servers, and I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to have to, you know, provide law and order. Granny Gaming says, what snacks is it this time? As I showed earlier, it is, there's my last remaining one, but the crumpet. So I have the crumpets, and then I have my Scottish shortbread. Dangerous Brian says, I think Little Gamer is asking, would you stream working on the construction of your model railroad that is behind you when you finally start working on it again? You know, I did that once. I streamed myself unboxing everything after I'd moved in. And it just takes a long time, and I'm not sure people really enjoyed it that much. So I don't think that's a good idea, because it's really boring to watch me work on stuff. It doesn't happen quickly. It's like it's like I paint something, and then I let it sit for a couple hours to dry. Then I come back and paint it again, let it sit for a couple hours and dry. It's really boring to watch that kind of thing. And plus, the cameras get in my way, because I'm trying to, like, walk around and do stuff, and then the cameras are in the way, so it's just too much. SS Normandy says, is Queen Mary still fast for today's standards? Yeah, I mean, technically. The RMS Queen Mary, she is capable of, you know, if she still had her engines and if she was still kept in good shape, she would be capable of 32.84 knots. Now, to put that into perspective, the only passenger ship, ocean liner or cruise ship, either one, that could actually reach those speeds is Queen Mary 2. And Queen Mary 2, the fastest she can go, is 30 knots even. So Queen Mary, the original, would be, you know, more than 2.5 knots faster than the new Queen Mary 2. So yeah, if the original Queen Mary were still running and still maintaining her original speeds, she would be the fastest passenger ocean liner / cruise ship. I know cruise ship is not the same as ocean liner, but there might be some ferries that go faster. I don't think there is, but there might be some ferries that go faster. So I'm being very careful with my words because I don't know for certain. But in terms of ocean liners and cruise ships, the original Queen Mary would be considered the fastest today if she were still operating. Bowers the Wolf Lord says, how many ocean liners are still floating? Oh boy, I couldn't tell you. There's so many. There's so many. There's like more than 10 around the world, so I couldn't name them all. Spyro says, hey Alex, did you know that there actually was a point in time when RMS Queen Mary actually achieved a top speed of 38 knots? Yes, in fact, I'm pretty sure I'm the one that said it, because I've never seen, besides me and Steve, I've never seen anyone else mention that fun fact, so I'm pretty sure I'm the one that said it. But yeah, Queen Mary, during the World War II, when she would need to race through an area that was really dangerous, like let's say it was infested with submarines, they would disengage all the safety systems, like the overpressure steam valves and things like that. They would disengage the safety systems, ramp up the steam pressure, and run the Queen Mary at 38 to 39 knots to sprint through a dangerous area. it was not by any means a safe thing to do. So I don't want people to think like, oh, well, they could have just removed the safety features any time and run Queen Mary 38 knots whenever they wanted. No, that's technically not a safe thing to do. They did it because it was either do that or get torpedoed. So I don't want people to think like it was just like a no big deal thing to run her at 38 knots. But yeah, it was something they did in very desperate situations. So, yeah, she went 38 knots, and Queen Elizabeth, when they did the same thing to her, she could reach 36 knots. So, Queen Elizabeth, so it's funny because I made a video recently, and somebody said in the chat, they're like, oh, but, you know, Queen Elizabeth could do 36 knots during the war. And I'm like, yeah, but Queen Mary could do 38. So, Queen Elizabeth was never faster than Queen Mary. She just couldn't be. You know, it's like a Ferrari racing a Prius. It's just, you can't compare it because, you know, the Prius was designed for fuel efficiency, the Ferrari was designed for speed. But, Spyro, if you actually have a source for that information, oh, please share it, because I have a screenshot that Steve sent me. It was talking about where the source for that information about the Queen Mary going 38, 39 knots during the war, and it was mentioned in a book, so I have somewhere the screenshot of him telling me what page, what paragraph it's mentioned in. But there are actual records. They're called, what are they called? Abstract logs. So there are abstract logs from during the war that actually show sometimes Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth going 36, 38 knots. And if anybody has a copy of those specific abstract logs that mention that, oh, I would love to have a digital copy of that, you know, like a photograph of it or something. Just so that way I have, like, definitive proof. Because people will be like, what? 38 knots? That's crazy. So that would be really cool. Trevor Hart says, who is Steve? Steve is my co-host. He does my Saturday live streams with me. We do Queen Mary's Lost Places. So we talk about all the places on the Queen Mary that have since been lost and changed over the years. And then we have a separate live stream one where we do Queen Mary Tech 101, which we just did yesterday. We talked about how the boilers work. So yeah, he is the historian on Queen Mary, I would say. He and some friends of his are, the most knowledgeable people I know on the Queen Mary. And I often learn a lot of my stuff from them, and they help provide me with sources and information and stuff. So really knowledgeable person. Ryan Hines says, would you allow subscribers to be allowed on your Discord server? No, because that's the same as public. Because if it's easy for you to just click subscribe and just join the Discord server to be a troll or something, like, that's too easy. It's way too easy. So, no, I only keep it for paying members because it's just easier to manage when there's a few people versus a lot of people. So, I used to have a public Discord server years ago, actually. And it did grow out of control. I did not like how many people were there. I did not like how I couldn't really make sure that everybody was safe and not doing crazy stuff. And when I tried to enforce the rules of my Discord server, like not posting dirty pictures and things, it was hard, so my current Discord server is really, really nice because people there are really well behaved. So, yeah. Conrad says, from my reading, I think there's a strong argument that SS United States pushed 44 knots, which is 50 miles per hour. Yeah, that's what people say. They say that she could secretly reach 44 knots or 45. I don't know for certain. Carl says, if Queen Mary had to stop under full pressure, the stern release valve, or I think you meant steam release valve, are they as loud then as Titanic? I think you're talking about like when in the movie when Titanic stopped and they were venting steam. Yeah, it would be loud. Quite loud. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to hear people talking if they were venting steam on Queen Mary. So, yeah, I would say that's a safe bet. Trevor says, many thanks. I will catch a stream. Oh yeah, they're really great streams. They're really cool. SS Normandy says, could the Queen Mary's boilers blow up when she was sailing at 38 knots? So supposedly no. Usually when they build a boiler, they build it to a safety ratio of a safety factor of 2. I mean, so. Let's say a steam locomotive needs to have an operating pressure of 150 psi. Well, the boiler will be designed for 300 psi. So it's the same on ocean liners. Usually the boilers were designed for a maximum pressure twice that of the operating pressure. So if Queen Mary's operating pressure was 425 psi, then you could imagine it would be 850 psi before the boiler explodes. So, you know, I heard that the boiler pressure during the war would sometimes go up to 700 to 750 just about. So that is quite near the maximum. So not safe by any means. Not safe at all. But not necessarily explosive. Oops. Captain Happy says, FYI, 38 knots is equal to 43.7 miles per hour. Crazy. Yep, it is. Steven says, on a previous thing, you mentioned that USA naval stuff was classified. How long will that last? I don't think there's a time limit on it, to be honest. I don't think there's a time limit at all. Spyro says, Alex, if I find those abstract copies of whatever it is you're saying, I will email them to you. Thank you. SS Tasmania says, is Queen Mary fast enough to dodge a torpedo attack? So technically, no. So let's just say, the submarine already spotted the Queen Mary, and let's say Queen Mary was going, full speed, like 31 knots, right? Because she could achieve 31 knots even with a bunch of people on it. So let's say she's going 31 knots, and a torpedo spots her, or not torpedo, submarine spots her, and they lock onto her. They know exactly where she will be, 5 minutes into the future. So what they'll do is they can aim, and then they can, do that. But the thing is that what made Queen Mary so capable of avoiding torpedo attacks is the fact that she often appeared and disappeared faster than they could lock onto her and actually, fire a torpedo at her. So she couldn't outrun a torpedo, but she was fast enough that that if they weren't expecting to see her, and they didn't have time to calculate where the torpedo should be to intersect her, then she could dodge it. She would be out of range, is what I'm trying to say. Out of range before they could fire a torpedo at her. So that's what was very key. But ships that were slower than her did not have that same advantage. So let's see. Right2PM says, why was Mauretania faster than her running mates despite being the oldest? Surely the newer ships would have been built with improvements. Not every ship, because if you remember, for every knot of speed you gain on a ship, it is an exponential increase of fuel and power that must go into that. So, so a lot of ships that came after Mauretania were not, you know, it wasn't like a car where like, you know, even then it is like a car actually, because while a car company might design a car for speed and the car will go 140 miles an hour, they might design a different style of car that is designed to have a maximum speed of 115 miles an hour. So, you know, it is like a car in that sense. So only the ships that were designed to race for the riband were the ones that could go those speeds. It was not at all a good idea to make every ship a riband racer because it just cost so much money. So Queen Elizabeth, for instance, was not designed to achieve the speeds that Queen Mary could achieve. She was designed for fuel efficiency. So she was designed, again, like, I hate to put it this way, but like a Toyota Prius. She was designed for fuel efficiency. She wasn't designed to race. She could meet Queen Mary's service speed, though. Queen Mary's service speed was 28 knots, 29 knots, just about. Queen Elizabeth could easily do 28.5 knots. So she was designed to meet Queen Mary's service speed, but not surpass her racing speed. So that's why Queen Mary had so many boilers. She had 24 main boilers, whereas, you know, RMS Queen Elizabeth had 12 main boilers. So, yeah. K4RNA, thank you so much for the $10. Hey, Alex, have a tea and biscuit on me. Thank you so much. Spyro says, I highly doubt that SS Normandy could reach that kind of speed considering the fact that she was mixing two completely different powertrains. Exactly. That's another thing. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because what a lot of people forget is that SS Normandy, she was what's called a steam to electric propulsion system. So she had boilers which boiled water to create steam. The steam fed turbo generators. So that means it's a turbo engine that drove a electric generator, which generated electricity. That electricity was then given to electric motors that drove the propellers. The idea was that it would be more fuel efficient to run the ship that way. And it was more fuel efficient to do that. But the result was that you were limited by how much power you could generate from the electric generators and how much force could be created from the electric motors that powered the propellers. And so, granted, Normandy was designed for speed. She really was. But in the end, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, Queen Mary's direct power, because she was turbines that drove a gearbox that drove the propeller shaft. So her sheer brute force of power was what helped her to win the ribbon. That's why I kind of laugh at the idea, and I don't mean it as like a horrible, like, you know, like ha-ha kind of laugh. I just laugh like, it's funny that Normandy was built as like the newest technology on a ship, but she still couldn't beat the antiquated technology that Queen Mary used. So it's just an interesting kind of like, kind of moment, you know? So Kobe says, do you think you can make videos on Stormworks the game? I don't think so. I'm really not much of a gamer, to be honest, you guys. K4 Arnie says, love the train window too. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm trying out some new stuff with this stream. So, better camera to focus on me and, you know, yeah. Maybe next time, maybe on the next stream, I'll have the train pulling the passenger cars, and the passenger cars actually light up. So you might actually be able to see the lights inside the passenger cars this time around. Justin says, hello, I'm just listening in tonight. No problem. Tasmania says, what's your favorite food? I love Cajun and Creole foods, so I like things like gumbo and jambalaya, and I also like etouffees. So etouffees are so delicious. Last time I had one was a crawfish etouffee. Oh my gosh, so delicious. So I love those kinds of foods. Conrad says, how fast do you think Queen Mary would have been had she had 6 fewer boilers, halfway between what she had and what Queen Elizabeth had? I think that if she had 6 fewer boilers, she would probably achieve the same speed as Queen Elizabeth. And the reason why was because Queen Elizabeth, while she had only half as many boilers as Queen Mary, her boilers were slightly larger than Queen Mary's biggest boilers. So, in fact, I can't help but wonder if RMS Queen Elizabeth had the world's largest marine boilers. I wonder, honestly, I wonder. Because her boilers were huge. Quite noticeably larger than Queen Mary's. So her boilers could probably achieve the same volume as 18 of Queen Mary's boilers. So I think if Queen Mary had 6 less, then both ships would be going about the same speed. Wyatt says, oh my goodness, gumbo is so good, and my mother would make it whenever it gets colder out. Same as all the soups we make usually in colder season. Oh yeah, I made homemade gumbo like 2 weeks ago. Was not cheap to make, but it was delicious. And I haven't had gumbo in years. So, because ever since I moved up here, there was a restaurant I used to go to when I lived in Southern California. It was... Oh, what was it called? I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was a steam kettle cooking restaurant. So all the food was cooked on steam kettles. Really amazing. And they did all New Orleans foods and stuff. So they had some really good gumbos, some really good etouffees and all that. Amazing stuff. That's the last time I had it. And then I moved up here to Portland in 2020, May of 2020. So I haven't had any southern food since then. And so the other, 2 weeks ago when I made gumbo here, I was just like, oh, I was in heaven. Let's see. Yeah, it was really good. Peden says, how much did the menus on first class on Queen Mary change day to day and voyage to voyage? So I will admit that is a fuzzy part of my knowledge. I don't know fully, but what I do know is that it would have definitely changed day to day because you don't want to serve the passengers the same thing all the time. It gets kind of monotonous. So yeah, they would have changed it every day, but it's possible that certain leftovers, not all leftovers, but certain leftovers from the dinner before might make it into ingredients for the next day's luncheon menu. So, let's just say, okay, let's say that, no, that's a bad example. Okay, let's say that dinner one night in first class was roast beef for some reason, right? And let's say at the end of the night, there was still plenty of roast beef left over that was not served to all the passengers. What they would do is they could save that and maybe turn it into cold sandwiches the next day. I'm not saying they did, but I'm just saying that that's an example of how they could utilize certain things and serve them the next day as snacks, because some people would ask for snacks brought to their stateroom cabins. So that's one of the ways they could have done it. But as for specifics, I will admit that's where I can't really tell you. But yeah, but I'll show you guys something really cool. I have a luncheon menu from Queen Mary, and I'll kind of explain a little bit of it. Let me just get it real quick. Okay, so I'll kind of explain this. Let me turn this. So I'm going to, on my camera, I have a screen that I can flip backwards so I can see better. Alright, so if I open this menu, it'll be hard to read because I know that there's some images on the top, but this is a luncheon menu. It dates to Wednesday, August 30th, 1939, which was the day that Queen Mary last sailed on a voyage just prior to the war. The war was announced during Queen Mary's voyage to New York on September 3rd. Or September 2nd, I'm sorry. Well, I don't remember if it was September 2nd or September 3rd. But anyway, some things on this menu. This is luncheon menu, so you got hors d'oeuvres like smoked eels, egg remoulade, fillet of anchovies, let's see, sardines. I don't see anything here that could have been made from yesterday's dinner menu, but you got things like soups, like consomme, potage, grilled fresh herring, mustard sauce, with eggs. You got scrambled with chicken livers, noodles au parmesan. Let's see. Cold buffet, roast beef with horseradish, gelatine of turkey, York ham and jelly. This is very much a luncheon. Like you can tell, this is all lunch food. I love that. It's very distinctly lunch food. Yeah, so interesting stuff. But yeah, this was what the first class ate for lunch. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is tourist class. So let's see. This is pre-war. So tourist class pre-war was second class. So this is actually a second class luncheon menu. I'm sorry. So yeah, this is what the second class ate for lunch on the first day of their voyage, the same voyage that war was declared on Germany. Okay. All right. So, let's see. Kobe says, Alex, if you're ever near Branson, Missouri, you should check out Silver Dollar City. They have a bunch of rides, not only roller coasters, and it has around 80 different frontier age shops. Branson, Missouri. Oh, yes, I know that place. I know Silver Dollar City. For a minute there, I was like, what? And I remember now. Tasmania says, you'll probably agree with me when I say pineapple does not belong on pizza, to be honest. I'm somewhere in the middle on that, believe it or not. And I know I'm a rare person on that. Because I would never voluntarily be like, oh yes, I would like Hawaiian pizza. Like, I would never do that. But if my friends were like, hey, we ordered Hawaiian pizza, do you want some? I'd be like, all right, yeah, okay, you know. I'm in the middle on it. I don't think it's disgusting, but I don't think it's what I want to eat. So, that being said, yes, I do have experience making actual Italian pizzas. I used to work for a pizzeria that made real Neapolitan pizzas, And no, they would have never put things like pineapple on pizza. You know, we cooked it in a real wood-fired oven, so we actually had a wood fire going, and we'd like drop the pizzas in the oven. So yeah, I do have experience working there. So yes, it's not that I'm saying this from like a typical American point of view. You know, it's just that, you know, it wasn't disgusting, is all I'll say. Tyler says, one more question about Discord. Is Discord good for people with bipolar and other mental health issues? I'm avoiding anything that negatively affects my mental health and stability. I would say that any type of social media where you interact with people is something that may not be good for your mental health. Because right now there is this thing going on where there's a lot of people that are very negative and nasty. And that can be found anywhere, you know, on any social media site, even YouTube. So I would say that it's a safe bet that Discord would not be a good idea for you because, you know, it's just, yeah. But if you're asking about my Discord server, that's different because, again, I only have like a few people on my Discord server, and, you know, they're very nice people, you know, and so I've never had any problems with any of them. So, yeah. Carl says, "What is your thoughts on Captain Smith being looking like he is not there during evacuation?" As far as I'm aware, and I know very little about Titanic, so that's why I usually never answer Titanic questions. But as far as I'm aware, Captain Smith did everything he could and everything in his power to assist with the evacuation of Titanic. So, as far as I'm aware, I have no problems with him. I think he was there 100% to help people. So, Granny Gaming said, did Queen Mary sail after the war? Oh, yes, she did. She sailed from 1947 all the way to 1967. So she had a good 20 years of sailing after the war. And she became the most famous ship upon her her retirement. So in 1967, when she retired, she was the most famous ocean liner in the world, even more famous than Titanic. Of course, Titanic later, you know, would outlive Queen Mary's fame, but she was the most famous ship in the world. Wyatt says, could you imagine the reactions of all the passengers when they heard of the war? Oh gosh, it was... I've read stories of their reactions, and it was just sad and bleak, but it wasn't a surprise, because everybody knew it was coming, you know, like, they could, you know, on Queen Mary's last voyage, her hulls, all her hulls in first, second, and third class were lined with cots for refugees who were sleeping. Queen Mary had roughly a maximum passenger capacity of just about 3,000 passengers, not fully 3,000, but yeah, she had roughly a passenger capacity of 3,000. They would fill the Queen Mary with 5,000 plus passengers, just to help refugees get out of Europe. So that's one of the amazing things about Queen Mary. But yeah, the reaction would have been just sad. And it's funny because I've talked to people on my channel who have this, like, this thing. They're like, oh, war is good. War is great. And I'm like, you know, these were people who knew that their sons and their daughters might not ever return home. I highly doubt they would have been like, yay, war, you know, at least not most of them. You know, everybody knew the gravity of war. Everybody didn't want war. They knew that war was something that they needed, but it was not something they wanted. So it really scares me when I read comments like that, where people are like, oh, don't talk bad about war. War is a good thing. And I'm like, no. War has never been a good thing. Even when war helps, you know, I hate to put it this way, but like the better side to win, there's still consequences on the opposite side for people who are innocent. So, yeah. K4RNA says, oh man, turn the jazz up just a little bit. I would, but I'm afraid of getting a copyright strike. It's just supposed to provide kind of like a background ambiance, but not fully. Artupiep says, what did they do if someone died on a voyage? Did people kick the bucket on Queen Mary? Oh yeah, people have kicked the bucket on Queen Mary, for various reasons. A lot of times, like the main thing was that they were just old and they died. But yeah, you know, there was also some accidents. You know, one person slipped on the third-class staircase and fell and cracked their head open. But things like that, yeah. If they died, they were placed in the freezer of the ship. So they were placed in a body bag, of course, and all that. Like, it wasn't like they weren't just heathens, like, hauling people over the ice cream. You know, like, but they were carefully wrapped and placed in a body bag, and they were stored in the freezer until they came to port, where the body would be taken off and properly taken to the right authorities on that. So why did Queen Mary change so many captains? It was normal for all ocean line companies to change captains constantly. They usually had a good run of about 1 to 2 years. It was a contract, you know, they were contracted to work a ship. So it's just like cruise ships today. Pretty much everybody on a cruise ship is contracted to work there for so many months. Well, it was the same thing for ocean liners. All employees on ocean liners, even the captains, were contracted to work a certain amount of time on a ship. And usually one of the ways that these captains moved up was, if you moved up, you were like brought to the next best ship. So, yeah, so yeah, that's how it worked. So it was pretty normal. Most ocean line companies did that. It says, Tasmania says, will you make TikTok videos? I am too old to make TikTok videos. Kobe says, I wish there was a remastered version on Poseidon Adventure. The same ship, the same names, and the same audio, but remastered with our tech. Interesting. Donald says, what a long way to go get air conditioning on the Mary. Cold storage and death. Well, Queen Mary did have air conditioning even in 1936. Her public spaces had air conditioning. So, you know, first class main lounge, smoking room, first class restaurant. So a lot of first class public rooms and second class public rooms were air conditioned on Queen Mary. And as the years progressed and they added more air conditioning to the ships, more and more public spaces on the ship would receive air conditioning. So by 1967, she had a lot of air conditioning on the ship, but the stateroom cabins were like the one thing that still never had full air conditioning. Granny Gaming says, what did you use to upscale and remaster these old videos? It's an AI technology. It's from Topaz Labs. So Topaz, Topaz Labs, and it's called well, it's their only software. So if you go to their website, topazlabs.com, it's their only video upgrading software. I ended up choosing that one because out of all the ones that I could choose, that was the best one. So I really liked it. And then from the same company, I also got their photograph upgrading thing. So from now on my channel, when you see videos and photos that are old and vintage, they will be upscaled from their original size. I use the upscaler not out of vanity, but because a lot of times the photos and videos that you get online of these old things like the newsreels and stuff, they are so terrible looking because they are in such low quality. And because I don't own the originals, I can't just upload them myself in a higher quality. So a lot of them are uploaded in like 360p, which is like the size of like an iPod Classic screen, which is not very big. And so when you blow that up to today's modern images, it's just pixelated all over. So I use the AI upscaler to smooth that all out and make it more presentable. Sometimes it looks fantastic. Sometimes it looks like it's straight out of the original camera. And other times, when the image quality is too poor to work with, it looks a bit more like a moving painting. So it's a little bit weird at times, but it's the best thing we got to upscale that stuff. So, Granny Gaming says, did the Olympic class have AC? As far as I'm aware, no. RMS Olympic never had AC. Because AC really only came about in the 1930s. And so while they could have added it to RMS Olympic, there was really no reason to anyway. Because the ships were built for the North Atlantic run, which was cold weather. So yeah, so although Olympic could have used air conditioning, because from my understanding, the Olympic class ships had really poor ventilation. I mean, they had better ventilation than most ships of their time, but by today's standards, their ventilation was really poor. Some of the rooms would just be stuffy. And I don't mean just cabins. I mean, like, some public spaces aboard the ship were known to be stuffy, just because there wasn't fresh air coming in very easily. So, and that was a problem that plagued a lot of ships, you know, so Falcon Lover says, afternoon, saw your profile, and I'm actually in a Marine Academy trying to graduate to work for Cunard. Awesome. I don't know what a Marine Academy, or Maritime Academy, I don't know what that is. Is that where you learn how to be a seaman? Like, how to, like, sail and stuff like that? Or to operate a ship or something? That's what I'm guessing a Maritime Academy is. Falcon Lover says, I grew up in the SoCal region, and going to the Queen Mary was my favorite thing. Oh yeah, I grew up in the SoCal region too. SS Normandy says, why are ships given feminine names? I wouldn't necessarily say they all had feminine names. I mean, you know, look at Kaiser Wilhelm der Glas, you know, or Prinzessin, I forget the other one, but Kronprinz Wilhelm. Those are not female names. Those are male names, you know. So they're not all female names. Titanic isn't necessarily a female name. So, yeah. Bruce Robertson says, Her Majesty christened the MV Queen Elizabeth in 2010. She unveiled a portrait of herself and took a tour of the ship. She did not sail on her. I was there in Southampton for the ceremony. Dangerous Brian says, especially with all the smoke in the smoking rooms for smoking. Yes. Tyler says, my dream is to work on cruise liners. I hope I can still do it. Yeah. I once, when I was like in my early 20s, I considered working for like Disney Cruise Line, but I just realized, like, I am not built for the ocean. I would love to sail on the Queen Mary 2 on a transatlantic crossing, but I don't see myself as, like, permanently, like, you know, working on a ship. Gaming with Ken says, I am back, Alex. Welcome back. Okay, so Falcon Lover says, yes, it is, so you can get your Coast Guard license on an unlimited tonnage vessel to be a third mate. It's the only way to do it within 4 years to directly become a mate. Awesome. Esonomani says, did Queen Mary have heating during the winter? Oh, of course. You couldn't do the North Atlantic run during winter without heat. You had all ships that crossed the North Atlantic had heaters. Every single one. There, yeah. So yeah, Queen Mary definitely had heat. And she had really, really good heat too, meaning that as soon as you turned on the heat came out. Like, it wasn't like you had to wait for the coils to heat up or anything. The ship just, you opened up a punkalouver and heat came out. So, yeah, Queen Mary was very, very good at ventilation and heating, and especially the public rooms with their air conditioning. Thank you so much, Gaming with Ken. Godzilla says, I have 5 Titanic models. Wow. 5 models. I have 1 Titanic model. I love it. I need to fix it up. Granny Gaming says, do you think cruise ships will go electric like cars? I mean, they technically already have. I mean, when you think about it, how does a cruise ship operate? Diesel electric. What is diesel electric? Well, it's a diesel engine that drives a electric generator. That electric generator powers electricity, which is fed into the electric motors that drive the propellers. So it is technically an electric ship. It's just that they generate the electricity with diesel power. But if you mean battery-powered ships, no, I don't think that'll be possible, because the ships consume so much electricity. We do not currently have the capability to store that much power. So that's one of the things, like, there's been some experiments over the years. People have wondered, you know, can we store battery power for like a whole city that has a blackout, right? Currently, it is not humanly possible to do that. We do not have the ability to save that much power. So the same thing for cruise ships. We might be able to power a cruise ship for like 1 second flat, but not for, you know, a whole voyage. It's just not humanly possible. John C. says, would you get Lego Titanic? When I was a kid, I liked Legos, but I don't like Legos as an adult. So, not that it's because I'm an adult. It's just that I like real models. I like realism, and Legos aren't realism to me. They're just, you know, they're like a toy version. And I have nothing against that for people who do, because, like, you know, like I've had Lego models even as an adult, but over time I've slowly gotten rid of all of them because I you know, I don't know. I like realistic models instead. So, but you know, I wouldn't buy a Lego Titanic. Lightning McQueen, that's a funny story. SS Normandy says, did Queen Mary have room service back when she was sailing? Oh, yes, of course. That was just steward service. So you had a call button in your room. And, you know, if you were a woman and you wanted a steward to come, or stewardess to come, I should say, you had a button for stewardesses. If you were a man and staying in your room and you needed a steward, you had a button for a steward. So there was 2 buttons, and it activated lights up in the hallway. So if you were calling a steward, I think it would be red. If you're calling a stewardess, it would be green. And that would also light up a console in the steward. There was a little room. They had little rooms along the length of the ship where the stewards and stewardesses would prepare tea and stuff like that. And they had a little board that showed them whose room was lighting up at that moment. So that way they knew to go straight for that room. So, yeah, they had amazing service. It was comparable to Normandy's luxurious service. I know a lot of people don't like that because some people are just Normandy favoritism. But Queen Mary was just as luxurious as Normandy, just didn't look the same, that's all. Daniel, that's a very, very specific question. I'm afraid I don't even know what that is. Russian iron paint. I have no idea. Peden says, Alex, what are your favorite books on Queen Mary or classic ocean liners in general? I have very few books on ocean liners. I buy one every time I want to make a video about an ocean liner. But of the ones I have, my favorites are, for Queen Mary, I would always recommend everybody the book called Queen Mary, the Queen of the Queens by William J. Duncan. That is a really good book. It really delves into the history of the ship, and it was written 2 years after Queen Mary was retired. So this was 1969. So when the author interviewed people like the captains and all of them, everybody involved with Queen Mary, the memory was still fresh in everyone's head. Whereas today, if you try to interview some of the people that were once crew members, it's been 55 years. It might be a bit fuzzy. So, but yeah, so amazing book for Queen Mary. As for regular ocean liners, I mean, you could always play it safe and go, The Only Way to Cross by John Maxtone Graham. That's a safe bet. I have that one. And then I have individual books specifically about one ocean liner in particular. So, like, I have one about RMS Mauretania. It's not so much the history as it is the engineering. There is a book I want to get that will feature the history of Mauretania. I haven't got that book yet. I have a book for Queen Mary's engineering, which is a really cool book that was recommended to me by my friend Steve. So that would be the Cunard White Star Quadruple Screw Liner Queen Mary. That's the name of the book. It was only made by one company, so it won't be hard to find it based on the name alone. Now, the book I told you about, William J. Duncan, the Queen Mary, Queen of the Queens, I bought all new sound equipment specifically for the purpose of being able to record that book as an audiobook. So for those of you who want to learn about the Queen Mary, want to read this book, which like I said, is an amazing book. So far, of all the Queen Mary books I have, it's my favorite. I will turn that into an audiobook because they don't make that book anymore. They only sold one edition, which was in 1969, and they've never remade it. And so you can't just, it's not easy to find. Sometimes they have it on Amazon, sometimes they're out, Sometimes they have it on eBay, but sometimes it's for $100. So, so that book I will turn into an audiobook just because I feel like there's only so many copies out there. That book is, 50 some odd years old. So I don't want it to just fall into obscurity. So it's an amazing book. I mean, it was so entertaining and so fun and taught so many things about the Queen Mary. So yeah, I'm going to turn that into an audiobook. And I have all the equipment to do it now. Well, I am missing one thing, but I'm going to get that later this week. But yeah, so that is an audiobook I'm going to work on. I would love to have the audiobook finished before the end of the year, but I can't make any promises. I've never recorded an audiobook before. It sounds like a big undertaking. I mean, have you seen on YouTube the audiobooks on YouTube? They're 16 hours long. Wow. And I have to edit that myself. So, no team to do that for me. Hello, Ivan. How's it going? Oh yeah, K4 RNA says, best book on Queen Mary, look up Bonanza book. Yeah, I was actually, yeah, I think that's the one I was just talking about. The Cunard White Star Quadruple Screw Liner Queen Mary by Bonanza Books, yeah. Falcon Lover says, do you think SS United States could really do 45 knots as they claimed she did in her sea trials? No. I think she could do like 42. 42, yeah. 45, I don't believe it. No, I don't believe it. But 42 I can believe. Yeah. Hello, Drown Plays. Doc says, before it was a hotel, do you know if any weddings took place on Queen Mary? I think one or two, yes. I think one or two. It might have been in my book, Queen Mary, Queen of Queens, but I can't specifically remember one. But I do remember hearing a story that after the war, this was like 1947, I think the ship was doing its, it was doing, what was it called? It was some silly name, Operation Baby Carriage or something, I forget, but it's where they moved all of the war brides across the Atlantic. Well, men would also travel on those voyages too, and I think during one of those voyages, the captain had married off a couple. That's one that pops in my mind. Oh, I feel like I need to sneeze. Oh, you're welcome, Peden. Russian iron was a boiler color that was mostly seen on locomotives from the late 1890 to early 1900s. Toyman Television talks about it. Trying to think of any locomotives from that time that had a different color. I don't recall any locomotives with that color. Falcon Lover says, I watched a documentary on SS United States and they said she was so fast the water blasted the paint off her hull. They had to paint her in dry dock and coat her with a special made paint. That is a true story. The water did blast the paint off the bow. But unfortunately, that's one of those stories that they like to brag, but Queen Mary had the same problem. Queen Mary went so fast that paint was blasted off of the tip of her bow, and you could actually see that when the Queen Mary came into dock. So it was actually a problem that it plagued SS Normandy, and even RMS Mauretania had that same problem. So it wasn't like it was unique to SS United States, like she was going so fast. She's the only ship that paint was blasted off the front of her bow. A lot of ships had that problem. So it wasn't, it wasn't special. John C. says, you should come see display at Oregon Rail Heritage Center September 24th. I will be there. Well, we might. I don't know. We'll see. Because I don't have a way to get around. I don't have, Yeah. But yeah, another cool little story too was on SS United States' main voyage. She was overtaking Queen Mary, so she was passing Queen Mary. Of course, Queen Mary you know, she couldn't outrun SS United States, you know. And believe me, you know, Cunard did want to try. They did want to try. But, you know, at that point, Queen Mary was too old, and even if they had spent a lot of money to re-engine her and stuff like that, it wouldn't have been worth it to them. Because again, every knot of speed you gain is like an exponential increase in the consumption of fuel. You know, remember that story I was telling you earlier in the live stream about how during the war Queen Mary would sometimes, they would disengage all her safety systems and run her at 38 knots to get through a submarine infested water? Well, according to my friend Steve, who told me that one of the engineers who had reported this in a book was talking about how when that happened, when the Queen Mary was running 38 knots, he was checking the oil tanks. The Queen Mary ran on fuel oil, not coal, so it was fuel oil, and it was stored in tanks along the length of her hull. The engineer could literally see the oil levels actually dropping as the Queen Mary just consumed oil to go at that speed. So imagine, that is exactly what it would have been like on SS United States. SS United States would have had to have an amazing amount of fuel oil storage capacity in order to go that speed. And yeah, that oil would have just been consumed. So for SS United States, you know, a lot of people think that, well, you know, a blue ribbon winner continues at that speed. But actually, RMS Mauretania was the ship that kind of allowed the public to discover, well, not the public, I should say, like the industry, to discover that really the sweet spot is 28 knots. Literally. The speed at which it is most comfortable to cross the Atlantic Ocean, the speed at which you're still going fast enough that you're not taking too much time, but slow enough that you're not consuming too much fuel, is 28 knots for an ocean liner. So after Mauretania, every ocean liner afterwards, no matter how fast they went, even SS United States being, you know, traveling 38 knots across the ocean, eventually settled into a service speed of 28 knots. So, and that was because of the fact that it was just too costly for any ship to go faster than 28 knots. So, so it is funny, you know, while SS United States was faster than Queen Mary, she never needed to go the full 38 knots. Never. Let alone the 44 knots that was originally claimed. Never needed. Because, you know, 28 knots was the most, you know, efficient speed to go, and still earn money back. So, yeah. SS Normandy says, where did you get your trains from? eBay! Wolflord says, is it common for someone's favorite ocean liner being the SS United States? Yes, especially if you're an American. There are some people around the world who will call SS United States their favorite, but mostly it's Americans. There's this big thing where Americans feel like the most patriotic thing you can say is that SS United States is your favorite ocean liner. So, you know, SS United States was a fast and powerful ocean liner, but she is not my favorite. My favorite is the RMS Queen Mary. And it's not because I'm not patriotic. It's not because I care more about Great Britain than I do the United States, although... you know, the reason why is just because Queen Mary, while she is no longer the fastest ship in the world, she is just a grand, beautiful lady, you know. And when SS United States I forgot to finish my story. When SS United States had surpassed, you know, had passed up Queen Mary on the ocean, they had blown their whistles at Queen Mary as kind of a nod, and Queen Mary blew her whistles back. And when they arrived at Southampton, I think it was Southampton. Why do I feel like it was not Southampton? Okay, well, when SS United States arrived at Southampton, ahead of Queen Mary, the captain had spoken to the press. The press was obviously obsessed. They wanted to know, like, what? So how was it? How did it go? And the captain of SS United States told the press, well, you know, it was a great run. I think he said, I'm paraphrasing, by the way, because I don't remember his exact words. I read it, but I don't have it in front of me. But to paraphrase, he said something along the lines of, it was a great run, and it was... What did he say? Gosh. Something along the lines of it's a shame having to take the ribbon from such a gallant, I remember this part, gallant and lovely lady as the Queen Mary. So there was a lot of humility in it. You know, a lot of Americans like to be like, ho, America, you know, and, you know, SS America was the fastest. But, you know, at least the captain of SS United States had more modesty, you know. He was like, you know, we are sorry to take the ribbon from Queen Mary. She's a gallant and lovely lady. And the reason why is because despite it all, Queen Mary was cherished by everyone around the world, including the Americans. The Americans loved her because of all her war effort she did for the United States during the war, you know, like all this stuff. And that's why I get so upset when I hear American people like, oh, what does Queen Mary mean to the United States? Like, send her back to the UK. It's like, what? Do you know what she didn't do for the United States? Like, she did so much for this country. So, yeah, that's one of those things I get so passionate about. But, NCC says, with SS United States, there is not much to save. Her interior is gutted. I have to agree. There really is not much to save. I mean, I hate to put it this way, you guys, but SS United States is kind of like an egg, right? Tough and hard on the outside, but everybody loves her with that soft squishiness on the inside. But what happened to the SS United States was, after she retired, someone broke open that egg and gutted it out, and all that's left is the shell. There's nothing about the egg that is left that gives that ship substance. You know, all the historic value of that ship is gone, you know. Some people say, oh, well, she still has her engines. You know, you can say, yeah, she has her blue ribbon winning engines, but that's it. That's it. Like, you know, like, there's nothing else. The rest of the ship is a gutted shell. It's really unfortunate, you know. I mean, that ship may not be my favorite, but, you know, I do believe in preserving ocean liners, no matter what they are, because there's not many of them left. And so it's a shame that SS United States was not left as is. Instead, she was gutted. And she was gutted because of her asbestos. Which is funny because Queen Mary is loaded with asbestos and they never gutted her. I hope they never do. You know, all the value of Queen Mary is in those asbestos-lined walls. God bless asbestos. Lightning McQueen says, when they converted Queen Mary into a hotel, did they keep her whistle? Yes, she had all three whistles. So they were Typhon whistles, so they ran on steam, and they are really, if you would have, technically they are horns, but of course you always call them whistles. So yeah, Queen Mary had all three whistles when she retired. When she was converted to a hotel, the third whistle was eventually, I'm not going to say immediately, because it was up in the middle funnel for a long time, but eventually the third whistle was removed. I want to say maybe in the 1990s, and it was stored in the museum area of the ship, which is on D-deck aft. And it was there for a couple of years. Actually, no, it was there for like a decade. And then when Queen Mary II was being built, they requested to permanently loan the, or I should say permanently borrow the third whistle from Queen Mary, which was already, you know, inside the museum. So they did. And they sent the whistle to, what's the name of the company that built it? Something Sonics. Cockham Sonics. Yeah, I think that's the name. Cockham Sonics made Queen Mary's whistles, and they were the ones to refurbish the third whistle when it was placed atop the Queen Mary 2. So today, if you look at the funnel of Queen Mary 2, she's got two identical whistles, but one of them is from the original Queen Mary, and you can tell because the one that's from the Queen Mary is a deeper tone. It is a note A, and it's a bass note A, so it's very deep. And the other one is not quite an A. I think it's a C. But, yeah. So, but Queen Mary still has two of her original whistles on board the ship, and I think only one of those two whistles is in operation on a daily basis. Peden says, would you have rather sailed on Mauretania or Aquitania? Mauretania. Just because it's my favorite one. Aquitania was nice on the inside, but not so much on the outside. James Guy Photography says, good job with the Queen Mary hull edit. Thank you so much. I did add a good, I want to say like almost a solid minute of extra stuff to that video. So yeah, it's, I hope people like that video. That took a lot of work. And the fact that I had to go back and add corrections was like, oh boy. But yeah. My sister already says, God bless lung damage from asbestos. Well, like I always say, asbestos is not dangerous if you don't bother it. So Queen Mary is a safe ship as long as you don't go carving into her walls with a saw, you know. So she'll be fine. All right, folks, I'm going to call this the end of the live stream. It's been 2 hours. I want to thank you all so much. I hope you like the new look of the live stream. I hope that you enjoyed it, and especially being able to see the trains up close. You know, that's one of those things that, you know, that I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, so... Oh, thank you, Peden. All right, folks. So, what is this week? So, let's see. Today is Sunday. Expect more old-fashioned newsreels that are converted to 4K to appear on Tuesday. Wednesday is the next tea time. And then Friday will be some kind of history video. Maybe not necessarily about ships. So, just prepare for that. And yeah, that's kind of how my weekly week goes, just for you people who are new. And thank you, everyone. And I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.